Introduce Frazer Merrick. The stage is yours, Fraser.
Thank you very much.
Oh,
Hi everyone. Oh, uh,
great. Can people hear you?
is that all okay? Can you hear me okay? Let me check.
Great.
Yes.
Yes, that
Okay.
works
Cool. Some
perfectly.
yeses. That's good. Excellent. Hopefully, I won't add to the technical problems you've already had. Brilliant. Cool. Yeah. My name's Fraser. I'm a sound artist based in Colchester, in Essex. That's the east of England. I'm really interested in hidden sounds. So that is sounds that otherwise we can't hear unless we use maybe a bit of technology, or sounds that aren't always immediately obvious to us. So that's things like using things like contact microphones to listen to surfaces, hydrophones to listen underwater. But most recently, something I've been really interested in exploring is electromagnetic sounds. So you might be familiar with the fantastic Jonas from LOM Audio, LOM. They make incredible electromagnetic field microphones. And I did a project a couple of years ago where I went to an arcade, so near this, on the seaside near where I live, and I made a radio kind of experimental documentary, really, all about this pier at the seaside. And I was interviewing people who used to work there, but as well as interviewing the people, I kind of interviewed the machines. And I started to listen to all the different sounds that the machines were making, and it kind of made me think, well, we think of these machines as kind of ways of playing, but like, well, what are all these hidden sounds of play? It was inspiring. I've just discovered so many really amazing rhythms, because a lot of the sounds are obviously generated by a circuit whose purpose is to push a motor or to like flash a light and all these sorts of things. And so I discovered these incredible rhythms. There was like this punch bag machine that just was like a jazz drummer, but like completely off their heads on acid. And then there was these like strobing LEDs that sounded like synthesizers. They had pitch. I was like, oh, this is fascinating. And so I've kind of ended up going down this path now, exploring that, and then also thinking, what else could this, what other electromagnetic sounds are there, and how can I get involved? And it kind of led me to the creation of this. So this is my instrument. This is the Photon Smasher, and it is essentially it's a solar panel, and it connects to a speaker, and it is a way of listening to light. And I'll dive into kind of how it works in a moment, but I wanted to sort of take you a little bit on the journey of kind of how it came to be. So, as an artist, a big part of my practice is being a kind of a community collaborator. So, a lot of my work is running workshops and working with people. And so, I want to show you a video, a couple of videos, just of kind of how the instrument came to be. So this is a workshop I did with an artist called Lula York, who's based near me in England, and we were making some Atari Punk consoles, but we were playing around with LDRs, light dependent resistors, to kind of use light to change the sound. But just sort of almost by pure accident, we realized that what if we had some solar panels there, and we just connected the solar panels directly to speakers, and we ended up creating this. So this is some music from the workshop. Hopefully you can hear that. Check. So you can see we've got the solar panel there flashing. We're kind of creating sounds as well as visuals. So that was kind of that was sort of where we began with the experimenting, was just sort of just playing kind of like hot wiring, if you will, these solar panels directly to a little kind of pocket guitar amplifiers, because it kind of didn't matter how much voltage we were sending into them. The kind of getting the circuitry right didn't really matter too much, because they were just battery powered amplifiers. It didn't really matter if we fried them, because they were just sort of small amps. And thankfully we didn't fry them, but it kind of meant, okay, let's really work this out, understand what's happening here. And that's when I really started doing some research and kind of trying to learn some maths and some physics again that maybe I hadn't touched in a while. And what kind of I discovered is what's happening is that when the light from the solar panel is when the light from an LED is hitting the solar panel, it is creating electricity. So it uses the photovoltaic effect, and it is generating that. And then the same way that maybe a microphone, a dynamic microphone, when the pressure wave hits that diaphragm, it moves and then generates electricity. So an LED, rather than being particular types of LEDs, they actually use something called pulse width modulation to control their brightness. So you might see LEDs that dim, and they're actually using what's called pulse width modulation to change their brightness. And now that actually involves the LED flashing on and off really, really rapidly. And so what we're hearing with that video is that you're actually, when you hear a pitch, you're actually hearing the rate at which, the frequency at which that light is flashing on and off. So I want to give you a demonstration of that. So I'm going to change my camera to a top-down view, and I'm going to spin this round. Here we go. So I've got my Photon Smasher here, and I'm just going to, let's turn this on. Let's just get that flashing. Can you all hear that okay? Can you hear the sound? Excellent. Okay. So what we've got going on here is the way the light is kind of strobing like this. It is we're hearing that kind of light flash on and off. But when I change that mode, what it will do is, here we go. So if I change this now, so the way that that's flashing, the kind of way it's changing brightness, we can then hear that. And then this. So you can get pitches from like different types of lights, which is mad. It doesn't make any sense, but it does make sense when you think about it. But it's really bizarre. And then different lights have different sounds. So this is another. I think bicycle lights are great. So this has a really high pitch. And then you find that different lights, when you put them together, might even be in the same key. And so you can see where it's going. From here, you can start to do things like, I'm going to turn on a little bit of reverb. And now you can actually start to combine some of this together. So, for example, here is another light. This is actually a light that is can go in a hot tub. So it's waterproof, and the idea is it fills the hot tub with light. But this has got some really lovely like color fades. And so we've got that now, like filtering, really lovely. And if I take a light that flashes, so trigger warning for anyone who doesn't like flashing lights. This light, when it flashes, what it essentially is going to do is it's going to like sidechain that main light. So have a listen and you'll hear. So kind of combining these lights together, so you're kind of creating this soundscape just from a bicycle light and a hot tub light. So that's really satisfying. And as you can imagine, I've now got like a cupboard just full of light up toys and kind of various light up bits and pieces. This is a fun one. This is from a pantomime, like a theatre near me. It sounds pretty chaotic. In fact, I'm going to turn my light off, one sec. So you can hear there. You even heard like a melody, and some lights definitely have a kind of where they've the sequence that's been programmed actually ends up creating a melody. So here's SpongeBob. SpongeBob has a nice melody as well. Just going to turn that reverb back. So this is the raw sound. Yeah, someone said in the comments, more versatile than LDRs. Absolutely, that's kind of like my point with this. And I think, I mean, LDRs are fantastic. They're really interesting a way of kind of interacting with a circuit that already exists, kind of adding a layer of control to it. But this is different than using an LDR. This is actually listening to the sound of that light source itself. And so I'll get onto where I'm going with this in the future. But at the moment, what the box that I've created, the Photon Smasher, so inside here we have our little circuit board. It's an LM386, which is a small amplifier circuit, and it does come with a speaker, so it can be used as like a tabletop toy. And then it has the solar panel on the front. The solar panel, what I found works well is about 2 volts solar panel with around 100 milliamps. That is kind of about line level, if you will. So you're not going to damage anything by plugging it in. If you do use a solar panel that's rated higher than that, sort of 4, 5, 6 volts, then just be careful what you're plugging it into, basically. So just because you don't want to send too much voltage into something that's not set up to receive that. So where I've been going next with all of these experiments, other than just kind of collecting random toys from various places and receiving lots of bicycle lights in the post from my friends, is kind of thinking about how I can use this as an instrument. So this exists as a product from the Clip website. So Clip is a social enterprise that I run. We run music workshops. It's on sale there. But I'm experimenting with it as an artist, as a musician, and discovering what it can do with music making. So what I'm going to show you now is how you can kind of integrate it with other pieces of kit. So you can see how I've used it so far by plugging it into some effects. But let's have a look at what happens when we plug it into other things. So I mentioned earlier the about using an LDR. So another option, another way of using this is almost a bit like how an LDR would work. So what I've got here is, you might have heard of Racket, a really fantastic UK kind of modular synth producer, but a lot of their stuff is really, really low cost and DIY. So it's really, really cool. But this is a step sequencer and then a little synthesizer. And what I'm doing here is I'm actually using the Photon Smasher to trigger the step sequencer, which then tells the synthesizer to play. So essentially it's generating CV. So you can use the Photon Smasher to then control other circuits. So let's give that a go. I'm just going to make sure we can hear everything. Let's turn that on. Let's turn this on. And then let's... So you can also use something, so at the moment, basically this light is controlling that step sequencer. But what you could also do would be, I've got something like the Korg Volca sample also has a sync in. So quite often I'll use, where's it gone? I've got one of those little kind of 8-way splitters down here. And so I can have one light where I'm actually using it to, I'm actually listening to the sound of that light, but then also splitting that sound and using it to control something else as well. So on that Volca sample, what I've done is I've actually created a sample pack of sounds from the Photon Smasher, and I've built a drum beat. So I'm kind of using, I'll be using one light that will be controlling a drum beat made of sounds of light, but then also treating it as an audio source as well to kind of put it through effects, etc., etc. So there's loads possible with it, and I'm kind of on this journey to really work out what it can do. And part of that journey is exploring with form factors as well, and thinking about what's the best shape for this instrument. So I'm just going to jump back to my other camera. So at the moment, let's get some light. So at the moment, the Photon Smasher exists as this box because that works really well for education and kind of young people who want to experiment. You can use it, play with it, and then you put it in the box and you put it away. I've done workshops. I know that things having cases is really is really useful, and parents like it as well when it all packs up nicely and doesn't need a bag. It's all self-contained. But if I want to go out recording as a field recorder, if I wanted to go to an arcade and like listen to some of these lights, this isn't the best form factor. So what I'm experimenting with at the moment is how can I make a version of this instrument that's more oriented to performers like me, or field recording artists, or anyone that wants to use this kind of in a more performative, artistic way. And so I've been working on version 2, and here is a little preview. So you can see it's handheld. I've gone with this hexagon shape because I think it will tessellate really nicely, so I could have quite a few of them next to each other. But the idea here is that it's simple, it's small. The circuit was going to be even simpler. So I'm going to be removing the kind of amplifier section of the circuit, and it's just going to be a 3.5mm output. So the circuit is reduced. It's actually really, really simple. The only thing I've changed, I've added a high pass filter on there. So in the current version, you're getting kind of the raw sound, and there's basically like a load of information coming through between like 10 and 30 hertz. So if you want loads of bass, it's brilliant, but also it potentially can be it kind of gets in the way of other parts of the signal. So I've put a low pass on here around 30 hertz. So you still get quite a lot of bass, but you're just cutting out the stuff that we can't really hear anyway. And I've not done anything to the high end. So in theory, you could record at a really high sample rate and then pitch it down to kind of get loads of stuff that we wouldn't be able to hear otherwise. So this is what it's going to look like. I'm waiting to receive the circuit boards from the factory any day now. But the idea is it's going to be acrylic on top with the solar panel and then the circuit board underneath. So you can see much, much thinner, which means that it will sit on a table and I can position the lights all around it, because at the moment, due to having the kind of the cardboard surface around the Smasher is great because I can just place things there, but it would be great if I could have an even bigger surface to play with. And so making it as thin as possible kind of allows me to do that because it's just as big as the whatever table that I'm on. So I'm receiving some support from an organization called Sound and Music to develop this into an instrument for performing, and I'm planning to put together an ensemble. Haven't got a name yet, but we're going to be doing a gig at the start of next year, and the idea is for me as an artist to kind of like actually step out of the just being an instrument designer and back into like being a performer and making music. So I'm doing a YouTube series along the way, kind of documenting this whole process, and I'm doing monthly videos because I'm realistic and I'm not going to do weekly videos. That's just not going to happen. So I'm doing monthly videos where I'm kind of putting together these little bits of footage of like me getting things wrong and then what I'm learning along the way. So if that's something that might interest you, then yeah, please do consider subscribing. Just type my name into YouTube, Frazer Merrick. I think Sherry's put a link to the Clip website. So there's some stuff on there that you can have a look at as well. But if anyone's got any questions, more than happy to answer them, or get in touch in the usual ways.
So Fraser, there were a couple questions and it's awesome. And I did put the links there. Fraser has the Clip website is an amazing resource for teachers. So anyway, check it out, share it. No, it's totally cool. Someone wanted to know, what about a matrix of WS2812?
Oh, if they could tell me what that means, then I'd happily answer it. But I don't know what the WS2812 is, I'm afraid.
Those are RGB LEDs that are used often in LED strips.
Oh, okay, cool.
Individually adjustable.
Neon beats, as they're usually called.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something I really want to explore, and that kind of is almost what I'm hoping to do in the future. Is because at the moment I'm using off-the-shelf lights, so to speak, but like a natural progression of this is like, well, what if I program my own lights, right? So then you kind of get into synthesizer territory, because if you can be controlling the light source, you can use light to control or to create sound. So, and even more excitingly is like, if that solar panel is then on the top of the synthesizer, that synthesizer will react to whatever else is in that environment. So if you're playing that synth on a stage and there's a lighting rig in that room, it's going to sound completely different. If you know, so there's some really interesting possibilities around a synthesizer that is quite reactive and responsive to the environment that it's in. So that really interests me. But at the
Excellent.
same time, I'm also trying not to like do everything at the same. So I'm just like, okay, just finish this, and then
Excellent.
I'll move forward.
The
But that's definitely
the
possible.
last question, and thank you, was what about fires and candlelight? What sounds will they trigger?
Yeah, so it's strange because it's not. It's more to do with LEDs, because it's the fact that they flash on and off. So natural light sources, where it's a constant light source, doesn't really do anything. It's just because it's a constant voltage that's created. We don't hear any kind of frequency as pitch, because it's not happening fast enough. So the guys from Japan, the Electronicos Fantasticos, you kind of, a really good example of this is that desktop fan synth that they've got, where they've got holes in the blades of the fan and they hold a light in front of it. So if you could strobe something in front of that light, then you'd hear it. But if it's just a constant light, then unfortunately. But the little battery powered LED flickering candles, they definitely make a cool sound.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Fraser. Everyone really enjoyed your presentation a lot, and I imagine you'll be getting some pings. But
Thank you very
I
much.
am going to stop recording now. Thank you for being